As the plants absorb the final few rays of sunshine and the season slowly draws to a close, it's important to take a few minutes and review what was supposed to happen, what did happen, what we can learn from this, and finally, what we can change for next time. I like to do this every autumn because, like most people, I believe that if you aren't moving forward and constantly trying to improve, you're wrong. I believe that it's important for everyone, in gardening and in life, to stop every now and again, get your bearings, and ensure that you're heading in the direction that you want to be heading in. They were a neat oddity, but they weren't a very efficient use of the land. They took up a lot of space and only started producing in the last week of August. I think we're too far north for super hots to grow effectively. I'll save seeds from them from the different varieties, and maybe in a few years I'll try again. This variety here, the red Savina habanero, I was quite fond of. The plant is so small and cute, the peppers pack the perfect amount of punch, and what's most important is that this plant alone produced about as much as 5 of the others in this patch. It'd be a shame to just scrap it along with the rest. So I'm going to try my luck at potting this plant and wintering it inside. I really want to get rid of these grapes. They're completely useless and arguably a net negative for the garden. Don't get me wrong, it does produce some fruits, but they're small and the birds get to them before we even get a chance to harvest them. And it's not like this was just a bad year for it. This has been a recurring trend year after year. The only difference with this year is that this is the year we converted this whole area from a flower to a vegetable patch, which only shined a spotlight on the whole worthlessness of this vine. It's more work than it's worth, takes up valuable space that could otherwise be used for more productive plants, and is just generally a nuisance to have to work around. The tomatoes were great this year. It turned out to be a stellar year for tomatoes. I've made over a dozen jars of sauce to use throughout the winter. My only complaint with them, and it's not even their fault, is that a decently sized storm blew through the area towards the end of spring and knocked over or damaged some of the plants. Again, not their fault, but next time I'll have to be more proactive with setting up stakes and supports for them to prevent another one of these situations. I'll save seeds from a few plants that bore the best produce and let them keep growing until the frost ultimately ends them this fall. Same as with the tomatoes, no big complaints here. They grew quite nicely, albeit a bit corkscrewy. Only thing I would change for next year is that I'd like to make the overhang on which they grow a little taller. And notice that the vines would grow out over the sides and interfere with the peppers that are growing in the next patch over. Plus, it'll be much easier to harvest them if I can squat down and get in there instead of trying to look around and reach in from the outside. Absolutely not. The entire yard is dedicated to growing flowers, trees, and shrubs. This area is dedicated to vegetables and only vegetables. Looking your way, grapes. No way am I about to be convinced again to let flowers encroach on the sovereign territory of the vegetables. They take up space, they outcompete the vegetables, and make it so that neither the flowers nor the vegetables turn out nicely. This is by far the biggest minor inconvenience of this whole season. I can't believe I let myself get talked out of just tilling this and slightly expanding the garden. The argument earlier this year for keeping it went something like this: why do we need this much garden? Just leave the grass as it is. And I guess apparently that was a good enough reason. Anyway, this will not remain for the next season. We're probably going to get rid of these for the next season. Garlic was planted here in the springtime, but nobody told me about it. I went the whole season thinking that this was an empty lot with weeds growing in it, all while the garlic ended up growing neglected and had stunted growth. Another prime example of why communication is key, but I digress. It's very possible that we'll grow garlic in here again for the next season, and this time I'll actually know about it, but that's still up in the air. As Dwight Eisenhower said, planning is everything. The plan is nothing. He said that in the context of planning for emergencies, which by definition happen without our expectation and hardly ever go according to plan, but I still think that this quote applies here as well. I can plan for whatever I want, but at the end of the day, nothing is set in stone until the seeds are sown. These plans could change dozens of times before the next spring. What's important here is that we're having these conversations with ourselves, our fellow gardeners, so that hopefully we don't have to have these surprises. We can prepare for anything the weather throws at us. If you like what you saw, why not subscribe and hit the notification icon to stay up to date on when I post? If you change your mind, you can always unsubscribe later. But until next time, bye.